Hello, I'm Kris. This is Spanish Conquest of the Incan Empire. This is, I almost said gods and generals. This is kings and generals, I believe. Either way, link's always in the description of the original video and all the fun stuff. Video.
500 years ago, atop the snow-capped Andes, in a still barely mapped continent, thousands of meters above sea level, two new empires smashed into each other in a historical collision that reverberates into the modern day. Conquistador and Sapper Inca, men from different worlds, will clash. The Arquebus and Huayraca will meet, and Tahuantinsuyu, the land of four parts together, will be undone. In 1528, Hernán Cortés had just returned from Mexico, bringing tales of conquest along with unimaginable treasures. The Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain, Charles V, received him and his riches in Toledo. As Cortés impressed the royal court, another veteran of the New World arrived at the city. It was Francisco Pizarro, the second cousin of Cortés. Pizarro had arranged to meet the king and planned to impress him with gifts: gold, silver, feathers, natives, and bizarre creatures unknown outside of the Andes. Pizarro told his king of the magical land of Peru, home to a native empire that Pizarro assured him could be conquered in his name. On the 26th of July 1529, Pizarro was issued a royal license to conquer this new land and named the governor of Peru. Armed with a royal permission, Pizarro set off recruiting potential conquistadors. He returned to his hometown of Trujillo, gathered his four brothers, Juan, Francisco, Gonzalo, and Hernando, and then set sail for the Americas in January 1530.
I gotta say, those are four Spanish... Did you hear that? It sounded like some meow. I hope you all heard that, and it's not death slowly creeping in on me. Anyways, those were certainly four Spanish names. Video.
The Sapper Inca Huayna Capac had recently subdued much of what is now Ecuador, when reports began trickling in. Strange men had traded with the city of Tumbes. Alongside these reports came others that were much more horrific. Chasqui's runners arrived daily, informing the Sapper Inca that a disease had appeared in the north and was killing thousands. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. Plagues were unknown to the Inca, so this strange sickness, known to us as smallpox, ravaged the population. The Eurasian disease was not brought by Pizarro, however, as it arrived slightly before he did, creeping in from North and Central America. In the following years, up to 90% of the empire would succumb to the disease.
Wow.
Sometime around 1527, the Sapper Inca Huayna Capac and his heir died from smallpox alongside millions of their subjects. 2 years before Pizarro had petitioned the King of Spain, Eurasian germs had initiated the conquest for him.
Yeah.
With the succession now unclear and the realm divided, the sons of Huayna Capac both tried to claim the throne and tossed the empire into chaos. Atahualpa, who possessed much less territory than Huáscar, controlled his dead father's veteran legions and slowly pushed down from Quito towards Cusco. During the final bloody climax of the war in 1532, Huáscar's remaining armies were smashed outside of Cusco and he was captured by Atahualpa's generals. Atahualpa was camped over 900 kilometers away in the town of Cajamarca with a small portion of his army awaiting news of the battle. Even with the Incas' exceptional highways and their tireless chasquis, it would take 5 days for word of the victory to reach Atahualpa. There, in Cajamarca, Atahualpa planned his eventual coronation as the supreme ruler of the Inca world. He was eager to get word from his generals and set off on his victory march towards his new capital. But there was just one small detail that he needed to deal with at the moment. Reports were coming in from his chiefs that a small band of 168 foreigners, some of whom were riding giant llamas, was causing havoc on the coast, and it appeared they were now marching straight for Cajamarca. Atahualpa was curious, and rather than have these men killed, he decided to see them and their strange llamas himself. What could 168 do against his 50,000 soldiers?
Wow.
He had agreed to meet the Spaniards in the central plaza of Cajamarca. This was a ceremonial meeting between his vast empire and some lowly visitors. So, on Saturday, November 16th, 1532, Atahualpa entered the square at Cajamarca, followed by 6,000 of his barely armed men. A battle was not expected. Atahualpa was quite confident, as just the day before he had heard of his victory at Cuzco and the capture of his rival brother Huáscar. So this was a day of celebration. Once he had had his meeting with this odd band of foreigners, he could march south and have his glorious coronation. Pizarro and his men had planned to emulate Cortés. They would capture Atahualpa, thus cutting off the head of the Inca Empire and paralyzing it. Atahualpa, as Sapa Inca, was supreme ruler of the empire, and it could not function without him. Pizarro had hidden his men in the buildings surrounding the square, and stationed the artillery and arquebuses on the far side of the square, ready to fire. Like too many fans in a tiny football stadium, the Inca troops crowded into the square, which had only two narrow exits. Not a single
Thank you for that.
Not a single Spaniard could be seen. As the sun began to set, nothing could be heard in the square except for a slight breeze. The fear inside the stone buildings was incalculable. Pedro Pizarro said, "I heard that many Spaniards urinated on themselves without noticing it from sheer terror."
Really?
Eventually, two men appeared from the buildings and approached Atahualpa. Vicente de Valverde, a Dominican friar, and an inexperienced native translator. The friar read the following to Atahualpa. "I request and require you to recognize the Church as your mistress, and as governess of the world and universe. And if you do not do this, with the help of God we shall come mightily against you, and we shall make war on you everywhere and in every way that we can, and we shall subject you to the yoke and obedience of the Church and His Majesty, and we shall seize your women and children, and we shall make them slaves to sell and dispose of as His Majesty commands." And
I just want to say this. There was in one of the videos I did, it was something about the church, and I'm not religious, and somebody had a disagreement with me that they didn't believe that religion was a big of an issue with war and stuff like that, and we kind of agreed to disagree on certain things. These people right here are why I said that statement, because these people right here are those extremes and I forgot the gentleman's name, but these are the extremes that I was talking about. These people who use religion and the church as means to fight a war. So when these people do that, to me it is the church that's doing it. And I know this isn't the same thing, but it's this kind of stuff annoys me, bothers me. Just really, this kind of stuff grinds my gears, as they say in Family Guy. But it's ridiculous. And it's not like this is new. I mean, it happened in America. It is what it is. It's not new, but it's just something that it bothers me.
"And we shall do all the evil and damage to you that we are able. And I must insist that the deaths and destruction that result from this will be all your fault." This was the Requerimiento. a document read aloud to the native peoples of the New World, informing them of Spain's divine right to conquer these lands in the name of God.
Divine right.
Valverde then approached Atahualpa and offered him a Bible. Atahualpa had heard reports of the men's fascination with these objects, but he had no way to contextualize what this was or how to interact with it. He had had enough with these foreigners now, and their disrespect for the Inca diplomatic customs. Atahualpa scolded Valverde and the Spanish for stealing from warehouses and killing Inca chiefs, and proceeded to toss the book aside. Valverde, horrified at this perceived act of extreme blasphemy, sprinted towards the stone buildings, shouting, "Come out! Come out, Christians! Come at these enemy dogs who reject the things of God!" The square again fell silent. With loud roars, the cannons and arquebuses soon fired directly into the mass of warriors, spewing out smoke and metal shrapnel. Inca soldiers, shocked by the sounds, soon saw beasts riding towards them. The Spanish war cry, "Santiago," was screamed as men rushed out of the buildings. A massacre ensued, as the panic-stricken Inca force tried to retreat out of the tiny square. Dazed masses of soldiers ran for the narrow exits. It was impossible to escape. Thousands died, trampled under their comrades or horses. Chopping through the men holding the royal litter, Pizarro and his men grabbed Atahualpa and dragged him back into one of the stone buildings. Just that morning he was basking in a victory that took 4 years to complete. Atahualpa was now, at sunset, prisoner to an unknown group of people. The Inca Empire, which only just finished a destructive civil war, was now involved in the highest stakes hostage situation of all time. The survivors of the massacre ran from the square, and the rest of the Inca army, now leaderless, dispersed into the countryside. Atahualpa noted the excitement the Spaniards had at finding gold trinkets amongst the wreckage. He concluded that these were pirates from some faraway land. If he could give them enough gold, then they would return to their ships and be gone. He told Pizarro that in exchange for his life and freedom, he would fill the room they were in with gold and twice over with silver. Atahualpa delivered on his promise. For months, the greatest treasures and artifacts of the Inca Empire poured into Cajamarca. The room was filled, and everything was melted down into ingots, which is why gold or silver Inca artifacts are so rare today. In the end, the gold totaled 1.3 million pesos de oro, or around 400 million 2018 US dollars, to be divided between the 168 men and the King of Spain. As the ransom poured in, so did more Spanish troops. Diego de Almagro, Pizarro's business partner, arrived with an extra 153 men. The fact that more Spaniards had arrived made it clear that this was an invasion force. These men were here to stay. After the Inca fulfilled their promise, it became obvious to Pizarro and his men that Atahualpa had outlived his usefulness and was now only a liability. If he were rescued, they would not be able to defeat the resistance he would organize. On July 26, 1533, Atahualpa was brought into the main square of Cajamarca and was tied to a wooden stake. The native population gathered around in awe at what was happening. Atahualpa was not only the supreme ruler of the empire, but also their god. Watching this happen must have shaken the entire world view of the local people. Valverde, the same friar that offered him a Bible a month before, came to him and offered a baptism. If Atahualpa rejected this offer, he would be burned alive. No fate could be worse for him. If his body were not perfectly preserved like the previous emperors, then he would not pass on correctly to the afterlife. He accepted and was quickly baptized. Still, he was then strangled to death as a Christian. The conquistadors soon left Cajamarca and began the long trek to Cuzco. As the square and that lonely stake in its centre faded into the distance, Pizarro and his men must have felt confident that this wealthy empire was already in their hands. But the conquest of the Inca was far from over. Thank you for watching this video in our series on the pre-Columbian civilization.
Well, I'm going to have to keep watching something about this. This is good. I'll be honest. Spoiler alert, I kind of knew who won, but I really had my fingers crossed that the Incans would pull it out. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and end this here. If you know more where this continues, because I haven't scrolled through their channel yet, but if you know more, then throw it on. This is good. And I liked the, the cartoonish kind of look. I enjoyed it. It was still good. So yeah, if you have any more from that, definitely throw it up. And until the next time, have a good day, have a good night.